Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Black and Beautiful Chit Chat Connections, where we chit, we chat, and we connect. Most importantly, this is a professional platform with an authentic twist. And I have the most amazing, I probably say this about all my guests, but I really am saying this about this guest. I have the most amazing guest. Our Queen Daquetta Jones is in the building with us today, and we are going to be discussing authenticity in the workplace. When I came up with this, I was like, I couldn't see anyone better than this individual to go through this process with me. So, Daquetta, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the audience. But for housekeeping purposes, guys, we always follow a format in some type of way. Some are more strict than others. So I want to give you guys a little bit of insight into what our episode will look like today. So like I said, we're talking about authenticity in the workplace. We're going to talk about who I be. Then we're going to go into keeping it cute.
Yes,
All right. And then we're going to shine bright like a diamond, like my girl Riri. Okay.
I love it.
So that's our format for today. If you are tuning in for the first time, this platform focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We take that lens and we talk about what it's like to be a person of color in the workplace. So we provide you with terminology. We talk about different topics so we could be more empowered as we're navigating this American landscape. So today, without further ado, okay, I would like for y'all to meet Queen. All right. And yes, that is her pronoun. All right. Daquetta Jones. Woo! The crowd goes, wow.
Thank you so
Daquetta,
much, Queen.
introduce us to you. Like, who are you? What do you do? Like, we're so happy to have you on this platform.
Yeah, and I am happy to be here. Thank you so much, Queen Charlene, for having me here. And it's such a pleasure to have met you. And I just want to say it loud. Welcome to the Capital Region. My name is Queen Daquetta P. Jones. I describe myself as a philanthropist, an advocate, activist, connector, motivational speaker, mentor, consultant, executive coach. And I have served, had the pleasure of serving in the nonprofit world in the Capital Region for over 20 years. I have served runaway and homeless youth in foster care, victims and survivors of domestic violence, individuals living with HIV/AIDS, community outreach, as well as serving individuals with severe and persistent mental illness, the homeless population, as well as civil service. I feel deeply that I am a change agent and activist for Black liberation, human rights, women's rights, reproductive rights, and social and racial justice and equity. Currently, I serve in the role as Director of Equity and Inclusion initiatives at the Community Foundation for the Greater Capital Region. I am leading the relaunch of the Catalyst for Change Leadership Program and, of course, support various activities to advance the mission of the Community Foundation, which is to strengthen our community through philanthropy. So that's me.
Girl, you had that written down or you had that off the cuff?
So it's the elevator speech. You when you learn yourself, you know, and you're able to put it out there.
Y'all better take notes. That was a freestyle right there. We could just put you in the booth, girl. You just, wow. I mean, your elevator speech is off the chain. I don't know about you guys, but I'm already inspired, and she's only been here for like 2 minutes, okay? Like, you only been with us for 2 minutes. This is why I said that when I thought about authenticity in the workplace, giving your background, your experience, the way that you've navigated the Capital Region, the way you have like such an influence, guys. Daquetta is known by everyone. Her name comes up and everyone's face lights up. You should see it. The way that she has been able to establish herself in this community, I couldn't think of anyone else. And I've met a lot of people, traveled a lot of places, but I never met a Daquetta P. Jones, honey. I have, I mean, you are one of a kind, obviously. Okay. So it is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. Guys, I met Daquetta because I met someone, I was in a space of networking, and they were like, you need to meet Daquetta Jones. But let me tell you, before you meet her, I gotta explain to you the type of person you're gonna meet. So I'm like, all right, okay, like, yeah. He's like, no, just know you're gonna be in the presence of royalty. So make sure you act right. So I'm like, what? He was like, yes, you're going to be in the presence of royalty when you meet her. And it took me months to get in contact with Daquetta because Daquetta is a hot commodity, guys. But the second I met her, I understood exactly what that person meant. I was indefinitely in royalty, in the presence of royalty, and I could feel it exuding off of you. So I hope today everyone gets a little bit of like what that feels like being in the presence of Daquetta in this virtual platform. And then hopefully they get to see you in person, live and in action in the future, right? Like,
Yes, that's the plan. And can
I
we
love it.
say our royal brother's name that
Oh,
made
yes. Oh,
it
Walter
out
Thorne.
there?
Walter
Yes,
Thorne. Shout out to Walter.
yes,
Walter is the market president and publisher of the Albany Business Review.
yes.
This man is absolutely amazing, a connector as well, a great leader, and all of the above. So, yes, shout out to Walter. Excuse me for not saying your name. Sometimes I shy away from saying names on the
It.
platform, but hey, let's do it. Let's put Walter out there. Let's give you a shout out and
Yeah. And
let
if you don't
everybody
know
know who you
Walter,
are
you
too.
know Walter.
Yes, yes. Walter is amazing, a very dedicated gentleman to the communities of color in the Albany and Capital Region, especially uplifting the voices of Black business owners, which is super important. Giving, highlighting the voices and providing access to resources that otherwise sometimes we might not have access to.
That's right. That's right. And this brother is also out here challenging the status quo
Absolutely.
in every single place that he occupies. So, yeah.
And we know you love that.
Yes. And he brought us together. So,
Yes.
shout out.
I
Yes. I'm here
know.
with you
Shout out.
because of him. I've gotten to know you because of him. And we're just going to continue to bond.
I love it.
And
I
do
love it. Which segues into the authenticity piece because Walter is super authentic in any space he's in. You are 100% right. So let's talk about this, right? Let's get into our icebreaker for the day. Um, Daquetta or
yeah.
Queen Daquetta. Does authenticity in the workplace, and this is just our icebreaker, so
Yeah.
feel free to answer however you feel. Does authenticity in the workplace actually exist? And if so, for who?
Yeah. So that's a deep question because there's so many parts to authenticity in the workplace. So yes, for one, and it can be for everyone, but it depends on the type of leader that you have and leadership in the culture.
Mhm.
It is about having an inclusive leader. Um, and it is also that you can have a non-inclusive leader that really operates in this white professionalism ram and really creates a culture of control where you have to look a certain way and be a certain way in the workplace. And that is designed to benefit white people, not
Mhm.
people that identify as Black, Indigenous, people of color, and our Latinx brothers and sisters. So it can, but in order for it to happen, I feel for one, when we look at authenticity, it is about showing up as yourself and not having to conform or to code switch.
Okay, hold on. You too excellent right now. You going into the. We ain't even at who
Okay,
I be yet.
okay,
Like we.
all right. Okay.
Let's slow it down.
Let me
Slow it
pull
down.
back.
'Cause I promise you, we're gonna get there. You guys, you see why I love her so much. So we know that authenticity in the workplace does exist, but it exists in different contexts for different people. And two of the things that you were able to highlight was one, leadership either dictates what that authenticity looks like, and then a lens of inclusivity or exclusivity kind of gets adopted as well and can either hinder or allow for that authentic space.
Absolutely.
And then in tandem with that, we know that like professionalism, like you said, because I don't want to skip over that, is rooted in a white lens and
That's right.
affords opportunity to white folks.
That's right.
Okay. So that, and if so, for who piece, we're going to say that authenticity as we know it currently, you know, the ideology that's being antagonized is really for white folks.
That's right.
Okay. All right. All right. So guys, because Daquetta is so excellent, let's go ahead and let's go into who I be. This is our who I be segment. So as you know, on Black and Beautiful Chit Chat Connections, we love to give you terminology. We got to break it down. We got to give you definitions. So what is authenticity, right? I want to break it down to as basic as we can get, and then we'll expound on that. So authenticity is a derivative of the word authentic, which according to the Oxford Dictionary means of undisputed origin, genuine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we can take it a little bit further, and mindtools.com, they describe authenticity as the following. You're true to your own personality, values, and spirit, regardless of the pressure that you're under to act otherwise.
Right.
So you're honest with yourself and others, and you take responsibility for your mistakes, your values, your ideals, and your actions align. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I agree with that, and to go a step further is it's showing up, truly showing up as your whole self, but it also takes that psychological safety, the trust, the belonging, strong relationships. And then it's also about a level of vulnerability
Yes.
with being able to be, showing up truly as yourself. It takes vulnerability, especially when you think of, the entities, these institutions that we as BIPOC people are walking into. It takes the confidence. That vulnerability. I used to clearly have a mohawk, right? I'm letting it grow out because I'm trying something different. That's my choice. It's not because of where I work at or comments that has been said. I literally started forming a mohawk in 2008. And I was really intentional about it because one of my employees at the time, or team members, son had been suspended from school because he came to school with a mohawk and it wasn't according to their code of conduct. And I'm like, do they specify mohawks,
Right.
in the code of conduct? And then learning about what it meant, especially when you think of like Mr. T and his
Yes.
mohawk. There's a powerful video that he really describes what all the parts of him mean, from his hair connected to his tribe in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember had a mohawk and I was looking to advance in the nonprofit world. And I had a mentor that I know she loves me. And I value and appreciate her. She is actually the woman that um, supported me and gave me an opportunity in leadership when I felt that I wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this interview and she says to me, well, how are you going to wear your hair? And I said,
Like
However,
this.
my mohawk, and she said, well, this is a very conservative, non-for-profit. And so I say, well, what happens if I wear a wig and then I get the job? So does that mean that I have to show up, not my full self, and portraying to be something that I'm not, like being in the role as a transformer from 9 to 5, and when I leave, I transform back to myself? And so I said, well, then that's not where I want to work, because I'm going in to the interview and I'm going to have, spend my time there should I be um, hired or selected with my mohawk, because I need to be authentic. In order for me to be great, in order for me to make impacts, in order for me to really live out my passion, like I need to be authentic. I need to feel like me and show up as me.
So I love that you said that, because yourdictionary.com compiles lists of definitions, and then they give you like what's the most common definition across the internet of a certain term. And so for authenticity, the most common definition across the internet is the proven fact that something is legitimate or real. So that speaks to exactly what you're saying right now, that I don't want the job if I can't be me, right? I want to be real. I want to be who I am, and I want to come to the table with that.
That's right. All the time.
Yes, and I feel you on so many different levels, because I mean, I remember a time when I would go put my hair, when I was a loose natural, I would put my hair in a ponytail for the interview, get the job, and then pull up in braids, because I always wore braids. It was box braids from then on.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody was shocked or whatever happened, but there was this space where I did go into the interview not looking like what I would look like every day for work. And there are memes online about that. It's like black girl says she taking off of work and show up the next day with box braids. Like, or you go into your interview with your hair back or your hair straight, and then as soon as you start your job, your joint is in a fro.
Yeah.
Like that's conversations that are happening that people are joking about on the internet, but those are real life experiences that, we as women of color, or just people of color in general, experience. Like my uncle, I'm from the Bahamas. I don't know if I told y'all that, but my uncle, he's a Rasta and he have dreads, but he's like an excellent golfer. Like when I say excellent golfer, like shout out to you, Uncle Derek. But when I say he was supposed to go pro, but they told him that he needed to cut off his locks. And he was like, absolutely not. So he even turned down the opportunity to be like a pro golfer because he wanted to be his authentic self. I don't know how many people understand that. Because I mean, most people be like, man, I cut those locks off so quick. But when you want to be real and you want to be yourself in everything that you do, you don't even want to compromise something as what people find to be minute as a hairstyle.
That's right. And they don't understand the relationship
right
that we have with our hair.
Yes.
Because I have a relationship
Me too.
with my hair, which is why I think actually 2004, I cut all my hair off. And I just said, I want to start over. I just want to be natural. And I also want, when I look in the mirror, I want to see me.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's been a beautiful journey.
I love it.
So that's what it is. They don't understand the relationship.
No, they definitely don't. Because some days I'll be talking to my head like, oh, so you want to be unruly today? I'm gonna put you in timeout. Especially when I was a loose natural, she was in timeout all the time. The best thing I could have ever done was lock my hair up, because that relationship, it was like she was telling me like, I don't like this. I don't like being manipulated all the time. And I don't like these protective styles. And I was addicted to weave. I used to love weaves. Like, I mean, half wigs, lace front wigs. I loved hair, like just putting additional things in my hair. So I had that journey as well. You know, as we're sharing with the audience, I had that journey, and there is a relationship with hair. There is a relationship for people of color with their skin, their clothes, their hair, their food. Everything means something when it's constantly antagonized in dominant culture. So you have to hold on and grip onto like anything in that moment to ensure that you don't lose where you come from. At least that's for me, right? That's my own experience. I can't speak for other people, but I know that as a woman of color, a woman from Caribbean descent, every little piece of me means something, from what I eat, how I clean my house, what I wear, how I decide to show up. Like, it means something.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't get to be whitewashed because certain white folks want to feel comfortable about their lack of knowledge of the other.
That's right.
So I want to ask you the next question. How does authenticity translate in the workplace versus non-work environments? Now, before you answer that question, I went to the Harvard Business Review, and there was an article that was written in 2013 called Be Yourself, But Carefully. And it shares that authenticity in the workplace is when employees feel safe and secure and comfortable showing up as their whole selves. It went on further to say, to fully show up authentically, employees need a deep sense of belonging and psychological safety. And they add that one should be authentic, but carefully.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about how it translates in the workplace versus non-work environments. You and I see each other in non-work environments a lot, because we're schmoozing and we're going to these events and so on and so forth. How do you feel in terms of showing up authentically in non-work environments versus work environments?
Yeah. Well, I have to agree with the article that you just referenced, because yes, I show up my authentic self, but there are certain spaces where I am careful. And also there's parts of my being that they don't understand. So I can't communicate with them and be like, and say something like, finna, like I'm finna go over here. They wouldn't understand that. They would think like I am unintelligent to say finna. What do you mean? Are you getting ready to go over there? So it's like, I don't want to be chastised, or even saying something like, y'all ready? So because I know they don't understand the language, that's the part of the authenticity that I am careful with, where I make sure to say, you already instead of y'all ready. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot of energy.
Yes.
Now, I can be in that space, but in the space with, my brother or sisters that understand my language, and we will have that dialogue, and then I've noticed we're talking, and then someone that doesn't understand it come and join us. We switch back because they don't get it, and I want to explain it. Right. So I feel like, it's that transformer. You know what I mean? And we'll go deeper into the code switching, but it's like we transform like
Yeah.
so quick, and it's like a hidden rule that we just know, right? Um, so and then when I'm in non-work environments, you know, I'm really even more down to earth, and I
Mhm.
don't have to be guarded,
Right.
you know. So yeah.
So I'm glad you said that because the article goes on even further and says authenticity begins with self awareness, knowing who you are, your values, your emotions, your competencies, kind of in line with the definitions that we discussed a little bit earlier. And another piece of authenticity says that you know how you're perceived by others. So only then can you know what to reveal and when. So
Mhm.
good communication skills are also key to effective self-disclosure. And your stories are only worthwhile if you can express them well. So the article is talking about different types of people who are authentic in the workspace, like those who mumble on too much, those who don't talk enough, or those who say awkward things at the wrong time. Um, so I'm glad that you brought up that communication piece, and the for us, it's more so like the code switching and so on and so forth. Um, this article, however, I do want to highlight in my DEI lens, and I'm sure that you might be able to co-sign this. A lot of these tactics are
Mhm.
very centered in you've already felt comfortable in that space to even explore authenticity.
Mhm.
Um, Whereas where we're coming from is you've already had to put on a mask all this time and you're ready to take it off kind
Yeah.
of vibe. I don't know. Help me. If you disagree with me, let me know. But I want the audience to understand the different perspectives of what authenticity looks like for a person who has intersecting identities or does not present as white, and what it's like for a white person in the workplace.
Yeah. Um, you know what? I was just thinking about what we were just talking about, and I wanted to make sure that I stated this when you asked about how does it translate in the workplace and then a non work environment. And
Hmm.
I stated something, and I just want to make sure that I am clear on it, because in what you said, not all of us have that discernment,
Hmm.
have been in the professional realm to be able to learn and to pick up certain cues and things like that. So in that context, it's unhealthy, and it's harmful.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't know how to transform,
Right.
so yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure that I said. So your next question, if you can say that for me again, Queen.
So, with what the Harvard Business Review's suggestions are, I'll read it again. So, it says authenticity begins with self awareness, knowing who you are, your values, emotions, and competencies, and how you're perceived by others. Good
Mhm.
communication skills are also key to effective self disclosure. Your stories are only worthwhile if you know how to express them well.
Mhm.
So, that statement, I want the audience to understand there is a juxtapose to that statement because, in my eyes, that statement is for people who are already comfortable in the workspace. They come to work every day, they don't have anyone antagonizing their being, so they can then explore how they're perceived by others and what that self disclosure looks like. Whereas there are others in the workplace who go to work with a mask on. They can never explore what authenticity looks like because their being is being antagonized in that space.
Yeah.
So I want us to be very clear about what the advice is from the Harvard Business Review's article and who the advice is for. Now, once you have gotten, like how Daquetta so eloquently shared with us, once you've gotten to a space where you do understand social cues and that professionalism, and you're feeling safe enough to explore how others are perceiving you, then this kicks in. But prior to that, I mean, there is a what's the word I'm looking for? Like I might not, I might have an apprehension to exploring whether or not I can be authentic in the workplace because I just don't feel safe there to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like a storyteller,
Yes.
right? Not a liar, a storyteller. Two
Okay.
different things, right?
Yes.
So when I had the privilege and opportunity to be appointed as the executive director at YWCA of the Greater Capital Region. This was, as a first time executive director. Although I was familiar with my community through my service, I was not familiar with engaging in networking events, even going to certain conferences, being invited to speak on panels or be keynote speaker. That was all very new to me.
Mhm.
And so I had a board member that identified as BIPOC at the time. And I shared that with her that I'm constantly going into these spaces and I'm the only one. And it is so freaking uncomfortable. I
Mhm.
feel like everyone in that space like knows I'm the only one. And they're like looking at me and having conversations almost like, why is she here?
Yeah.
So
Like you're
we
under a microscope and they have an additional lens and you're frying in there.
you feel it. It is a physiological um effect that happens when you walk into those spaces. And I'll never forget. Um, I want to say her name, and then I'm like, should I say her name? Should I not say her name? But she said to me, well, you know what? This is what we're going to do. When you're invited to these events, especially these events that you know that you're the only one, we're going to go together.
Hmm.
And we're going to look to get other um, people that look like us, that's missing from the room, to also go with us to
Right.
this space. The other thing is, she challenged me to also challenge this, to make a note of it. And I get that that is not comfortable for everyone. I was in a position where I would say I had a level of privilege as an executive director, that I can say things
Right.
and I can challenge the status quo. And some of the things would be, ask the question, do you notice anything odd about this space?
Look around the room, guys.
Like,
What do you see? Is there a pink elephant doing cartwheels in here?
who's missing? Who's missing? You
Half
know,
the time they don't even have an answer for you.
so it was that challenge. So it's really it's for one, when we first experience it, we need to acknowledge it, and then in hopes of connecting with someone that we trust to create a plan to help it, to help us through that process, as well as to come up with tips and things for
Mm-hmm.
us in those spaces that we are occupying, right?
Yes.
If it's in the workplace, look, I have worked for organizations where the program that I worked in or that I led, we were literally we were all black. Majority, like 90% of us were black. And when you look at where the location of this program was, it was like that was done very intentionally, but also in a harmful way
Mm-hmm.
as well, right?
Yeah.
But then when we would go up to what we call like the White House, when we would go up to the White House together, for a monthly meeting, it was almost like we literally became like the only ones in this space, right? And it was like our body language changed, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then we just had a plan. We knew exactly what we were going to do when we came, like we bonded together. However, that's not the experience everywhere.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there are some of us that perpetuate some of this harm, because they have really grown up in it and think that they don't even know that it exists. Some of them, I think they know that that's what they're doing, but they've just become so comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And it's so harmful, especially when it is us that are perpetuating it and don't want to join together in really coming up with a strategy to navigate this. The other thing for me, Queen, I'm going to be very honest. I don't want to be anywhere that I cannot be my authentic self.
Preach.
And I know that
Ring.
it's hard for some people because we need a job. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? We need shelter, we need food, we need other resources to live, right? So it's not we just need this job and we just gonna deal with it. But it is so traumatizing. It is so traumatizing to have to constantly get up in the morning and go into a place where you don't feel welcomed
Right.
and you don't feel that you can be yourself.
Yep.
Not all money is good money. You know,
Listen.
we talked about that
The
earlier this
other
week.
day.
Not all money
Exactly.
is good money, but not all of us can make that sacrifice and can wait. So the other part of that is we start our own.
Listen, guys, we just went on a tangent, but I had to let Miss Queen go on a tangent because we want you to recognize that you have power. You hold the power as to whether or not you want to be authentic in a space. That means either you take ownership of how you navigate, you recognize your own
Yeah.
flaws, your own you have that self-awareness, your strengths, your weaknesses, then you perceive how others perceive you,
Yeah.
and in turn you find mentorship opportunities or opportunities to bond with other people who would like to be authentic as well. And then you can start changing the landscape of how you navigate. Now obviously we are very sensitive that this is not a one size fits all. This doesn't happen for everybody, but we do want to encourage you that if there is a glimpse of hope that that can happen for you, start creating your own authenticity in the workplace and do it smart and do it strategically.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me to our next piece, right? Daquetta, we're not gonna harp on this piece because I feel like we could stay here all day. But
Yes.
what is the call to action for organizations to create ecosystems where authenticity thrives for all employees? I just kind of want to
Yeah.
explore what that looks like from your perspective.
Yeah.
What
I
would be a call
think
to action for you?
I think that the biggest part, and it's so critical, that employers must foster a culture of belonging to
Woo-hoo.
bring out the best in all of their employees and to celebrate and embrace their differences. We are not all the same. We're not the same, and that's a beautiful thing.
Okay.
So that's it.
Listen, hashtag what she said. I listen, there's no other, like I couldn't see it any other way either, Daquetta. Foster belonging and celebrate differences. Trust me, you will get a return on investment because it costs more for you to onboard an employee than to retain one.
That's right.
And we've seen that nationally. So, I mean, do the right thing like Spike Lee. So let's get into your topic that you've been hitting this topic. I mean, you tap dancing on this sucker.
Oh, tap
Code
dance.
switching. Code switching. So, guys, I'm going to give you the definition of code switching. It is the process of shifting from one linguistic code or language or dialect to another. And this depends on the social context or conversational setting.
Mhm.
So you can expound on this, Daquetta. I know you talked about, say, there's three of us at by the water jug, in the staff room, and we're all black, and it's like Kiki, it's a whole Kiki. We know it's a Kiki. Everybody's like, we cacking. Now here comes somebody who just doesn't fit. They're not gonna know what a Kiki is. Then a cat. They don't know the references. What are we doing in this moment?
Yeah. You know what? This is me. This is how I lead. And if
Okay.
I am challenging um leaders, all leaders, but I'm also going to be very direct with our white leaders about having being an inclusive leader, right? For me, I would take the time to explain what it is, the laughter. You know what I mean? I would educate. You know what I mean? I would have them join in, but it depends on what we was talking about and what we were laughing about. If we talking about, an experience that happened outside of work, that's a little different. They don't need to know. But I look for teachable moments.
What about the person who's not looking for a teachable moment? Because I will say this. Queen Daquetta is a teacher, a mentor, a speaker, a leader. That's what you do. So innately, you're like, well, let me bring you in and let me teach you what this moment looks like.
Yeah.
But very often we find that there is a silent conversation that needs to be a little bit more louder. That it's not people of color's job to educate
That part.
all the time. Like you
Yeah.
need to have some ounce about your own education. Like, for example, the word child. Like I remember I was in a group text. I'm going off, I got to tell this story. I was in a group text and, it was like a work group text and somebody was like, child, right? And, the next day this girl came in and she was like, oh yeah, Charlene, what was Chile? And I was very confused. No, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm sitting there perplexed. I'm perplexed, Daquetta. I'm like, Chile? I'm like, who said Chile in the group text? Like, because at this point, I'm like, I must have missed something. And they were like, no, right here. I was like, oh, that's child. Like,
Yes.
and they were looking at me like, very confused. But I thought I was confused. Nevertheless,
Yeah.
Chile came out of child. They didn't understand child.
They didn't get it. They didn't get it. And you are absolutely right. It is not our responsibility, Black, Indigenous, people of color, to teach white people. I can appreciate when people ask, right? And then depending on what it is, I'll tell them you should do some research.
Right.
You know what I mean? Go look it up. What it means. So, you know how often we have had to go and look up stuff to see what it means?
Like
we
cap.
need to know.
I had to look up cap. I was like, what? My students was like, oh, you capping, Miss Shaw. I'm like, capping? What is that? Child, I went right to the Urban Dictionary. I was like, oh, it means I'm like, I'm
Yes.
fugazi. I'm lying about something. I'm exaggerating the truth.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't know what was it, Flink?
Fleek?
You on Flink
Oh,
or
yeah,
Flink?
yeah.
What is it, Flink? I I don't know what that means.
Uh,
And then I
well,
went and I looked it up. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I can get with that.
you heard it here, guys. Urban Dictionary is a credible source. Go and look up the stuff if you don't understand the dialect, the terminology. But
Yeah.
also, I will say this too. On the flip side, working with young people in the higher education sector and bringing students from first generation or low income backgrounds who have gone to underserved schools into the college sector, I found that some words they didn't understand, right? And they had to look them up. I would have issues with textbooks like, Miss Shaw, I don't understand what this textbook is saying to me. And I would have to tell them, okay, this is a different dialect, this is a different language, a code of language. So you need to start looking up the words that you don't understand and look for context clues as you read through your textbook. So there are ways, right? Like it's not just one-sided, but the term code switching is more often used for people of color who have to go into white spaces because we do have a different we communicate differently.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think we should feel empowered in that. We should understand that, your slang, for lack of a better term, that comes from you and your family and your culture and the people you're around, that's something to be championed. But, learning the art of code switching helps you navigate the American workforce landscape a little bit better. But some people want to bring that authenticity to the workplace. I'm the type of person where, yes, I will say child every once in a while because it slip out.
Girl,
Oh, girl, it'll slip out.
you
But then
already know.
when it slips out, I'm like, dang, did I just say that out loud? Did I just say that? Is anybody looking at me? Because I'm like, I didn't mean for it to slip out in that way,
Yeah, you know what? When you're confident, you know who you are. There are times where it flows out. It flows out. I was at an event last week and someone asked me a question and I literally was not trying to be sassy. I really wasn't. But I just didn't have time to explain about me because she was just meeting me and I said, "You should Google me."
Ooh, Google me, baby. You better ask
You
somebody.
should Google
Google
me.
me, baby.
She really didn't know what that meant. And I was like, yeah, just type my name in. And on Google me, type my name in, and you'll learn about me. Because I was rushing out, I had to go.
Yeah.
My time. I appreciate it. She was just saying it's something about you, and I'm just like, well,
Aww.
I
Well,
appreciate
Google
that.
me.
And it was sweet. But and then I was like, oh, did I come across sassy?
Listen, my black and beautiful family. She just boop, boop. She was like, Google me, baby. You want to know about me? Just put my name. First of all, we're in 2022. If you're not stalking people online, I mean, if she should have just been like, let me write her name down. I'll find out about her later. At least that's how I navigate. I'm like, oh, what's their name? Okay. And then later on that evening, I'm swiping through just to learn a little bit more about the person,
Yes.
send them an email, hit their DMs on LinkedIn. I mean, there's other ways to network these days.
Yes.
So no, that wasn't sassy. All right.
Okay.
So as we are closing out the who I be portion, we went through authenticity. What does that mean? We talked about how it translates in the workplace. We heard some amazing stories from Daquetta about her experiences. We gave you guys some pointers on, how to navigate if you want to explore being authentic in the workplace. Then we did a call to action for our organizations. We talked about code switching. And now we're going to go from professionalism, excuse me, into our next segment, which is keeping it cute, baby. So, Daquetta, professionalism. Who is responsible for that terminology and why is it so important?
Huh. I love what Tima Okun and Keith Jones said, how they defined it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clear. It's a white supremacy culture
Mm-hmm.
or the systemic, institutionalized centering of whiteness.
You guys heard it here. You heard it
So
here.
it's clear who it benefits. And
Mm-hmm.
it's also about making white people feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, with the juxtapose of that, Merriam Webster defines it the skill, good judgment, and polite behavior
Who wrote that?
that is expected. I'm not even done yet. I'm not even done, girl. The polite behavior that is expected from a person who is trained to do a job well. And guess what? They even went further. Professionalism is commonly understood as an individual's adherence to a set of standards, code of conduct,
Hmm.
or collection of qualities that characterize accepted practice within a particular area or activity. Guys,
Hmm.
sometimes we can be so misled by the definition of terms. That's why I focus on terminology and I try to expound on them.
Right.
Because as you see, Daquetta was able to give us literally the framework of how professionalism came about. And then as we read through the definition, we could see how that framework plays itself out. So we can talk about professionalism in the workplace because this is what's shaping how we authentically navigate in the workplace. Because as we know it in the American landscape of the workplace, this professionalism encompasses the way that you carry yourself, your attitude, and the way you communicate with others, which is exactly what we were just talking about. So being professional can be a positive first impression, successful interpersonal relationships, and a lasting reputation within the organization and industry. But if that is in the context and framework of white supremacy, who does that benefit?
Hmm.
I mean,
Not us.
not us at all. And that's why it's so important for us to have these types of conversations amongst ourselves and those who want to learn more and be in allyship with us, because that is how we will be able to change this framework and the landscape of what professionalism looks like. Because professionalism is basically do what I tell you to do. And if you go outside of it, you will have consequences for your actions.
And it's a lot too about conformity. You
Yes.
know what I mean? How you have to conform. You have to look a certain way. You really, it's almost as if being perfect,
Hmm.
as if nothing, no life happens moments for you. Just
Right.
got to be perfect. You got
Yes.
to wear your hair a certain way. You got to wear, mostly this misogynoir, being that we're focusing on BIPOC. Um, um, you have to look a certain way, dress a certain way. Um, even, wanting to, what's the word I'm looking for? It keeps like coming in and then it escapes
I hate when
my
that
mind.
happens.
I have those moments.
Yes.
Yes, in my 40s, I have those moments, but I've been having those moments. Um,
No,
but
it's just so much material and
it,
so many
it,
terms. Yeah.
it is.
Hmm.
So how I see it is with the conformity, you have to be a certain way, even the way you show up in meetings, right? You know, there's things that we all go through in our lives. Um, but a lot of times when you're working in these white professionalism institutes, we don't take care of ourselves like we should take care of ourselves, because we don't want to have to call out of work, you know,
Yep.
or take time out, you know,
Yep.
because we want to be seen as, you know, we're committed to this organization and we are in compliance with your code of conduct and personnel manual. And that's just, I just don't, I don't like it. And it all just needs to go away.
Bye. Bye. So I love that, we're talking about this because this is going to bring us into the keeping it cute segment. And what I'm hearing or what's coming up for me in this moment is there are times when we, as people of color, people from intersecting identities, we might get literally harmed in the moment and we're not able to like express how we feel because there's this negative stereotype or it's unprofessional to do
Mm,
that. I mean, I'm not even looking at professionalism in terms of how you show up, physically.
yeah,
Now I'm getting into like the
internal.
emotional and
Yeah.
mental piece where you might have harmed me and done something absolutely absurd and I have to literally just wear this face and act as if nothing happened because there's no accountability for your actions in this space.
That's so sad.
Um and so I want to go into keeping it cute. We're gonna
Mhm.
go into keeping it cute because a part of your authenticity and your code switching and you understanding the root of professionalism brings you into your ability to navigate spaces with little to no emotion sometimes. And so we call that keep it cute. Keep it cute. When somebody gets tap dancing on your nerve, keep it cute now. Keep it cute. Or I'm gonna keep it cute, which means I'm not going to take it to the next level where I think it should go. I'm
Yeah.
going to utilize my emotional intelligence in this moment.
Yes. It's almost like I'm gonna be nice.
Yes, I'm gonna
I'm
be
gonna be
nice.
nice.
Yeah, be nice. Find somebody nice, right?
Yes.
So, okay, here's a scenario. And this scenario, I'm just gonna throw it at you and you just react to me, however, whatever comes to your mind. So, you're in a meeting with colleagues, and one colleague expresses their disdain for a current event that occurred nationally. And this event has been all over the media and is worth a conversation. The leader of the meeting decides to take a moment to reflect and ask everyone to share their thoughts and opinions. What is your initial reaction to this?
I want to know what is the what happened. You know,
Ah,
what is the current event that
okay.
happened?
Okay. Provide me with the juxtapose of examples. Because it sounds like you would react differently based on the current event. Or do you want me to give you an example and then you react?
I mean, I feel like it's such a it's a great scenario, right? But it's so loaded. So this is what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
If I was the inclusive leader,
Okay.
right,
Mm-hmm.
and that care about the stress of employee that's just having this conversation. And I think also when you have to know like the discernment and be able to read the room,
Mm-hmm.
right, to
Mm-hmm.
see the other reaction. Sometimes it can just be, let me just pull this person aside, you
Right.
know, especially if I am their supervisor or the leader of the organization. Let's just have a conversation to see How are they feeling?
Right.
It really seems to have had an impact on him. There's also the opportunity to have a difficult conversation in bringing everyone together. I remember when the last administrator was elected to office, I will never forget how I felt that morning when I woke up and I did not want to go to work. I didn't, because I'm feeling like I got another target on my back.
Right.
But I was concerned for my team. So I needed to show up and just check in.
Mm-hmm.
And being very careful with that because that is political, right?
Yeah.
But it's still, even political or not, it's having an emotional impact on them. So it was really reaching out to all of them. If they want to have a conversation, I'm here. Um, if and also proposing it to them. If we feel that we need to, hey, go spend some time in the
Mm-hmm.
conference room and let's just process our feelings. We can do that if that's what we need to do.
Right.
So yeah, those are my responses.
So I know this scenario was super broad, but I wanted you to bring out exactly what you did, right? Because there are many different ways that we can look at this type of scenario. Given the context and the topic of authenticity, you could also look at it as an employee and say, I would have shared in that moment or I would have held back in that moment, regardless of what the conversation was about. Stand up, stand back. If I was very, passionate about what the conversation was, then I'd share. If not, I probably would have stand back, right? So we know that for the purposes of keeping it cute, we could look at it as the leader in that moment and take that moment and shape it the way we want it to be shaped, or we could look at it as the employee in that moment and shape the moment the way we want it to be shaped. I asked this question because it's going to take us into that workplace toxicity
Mm,
space. And workplace toxicity, more often than not, is dictated by these types of little conversations, the managerial relationships, the way the professionalism is seen, what the code switching might have to be, whether or not authenticity is, readily available for anybody, meaning like, can I be authentic in that moment? So I wanted to discuss some examples of toxic work environments,
yeah.
right? Like what, and obviously we are centering the experiences of our BIPOC and people of color and our Latinx and Latina and Hispanic and Asian communities and any historically ignored groups. We are
Yeah.
centering those experiences right now. So let's talk a little bit about what toxic work environments look like.
Yeah. So for one, it's the microaggressions, right? And clearly, according to the dictionary, it's the statement, action, or incident regarded as an instance of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized or minoritized group, such as racial or ethnic minority, right? Um, it's also just clearly racism also shows up in toxic work environments. White professionalism shows up in toxic work environments. Gaslighting shows up in toxic work environments. This is really falls under the white professionalism, but that constant sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And implicit bias is another thing that shows up in a toxic work environment. And the other thing is that I think it's really important to define like the institutional racism, that construct, which it's a form of racism, according to the dictionary, that is embedded in the laws and regulations of a society, or an organization. I'll also say firm, business. It manifests as discrimination in areas such as criminal justice, employment, housing, healthcare, education, political representation.
Every single system we engage in.
Everything.
So if you thought you were escaping it at any point, regardless of which side you benefit or don't benefit on, you are engaging in systemic oppression at every moment of your day.
That's right.
Most people don't recognize that. So thank you for clarifying that for us. And all of the ways in which a toxic environment for people of color in this country, or historically ignored groups in this country, manifest themselves. I personally will say that I have been in spaces where I was macroaggressed every day. I have moved away from microaggressions. Them things are not subtle, okay? And they are not unintentional. They are very intentional and very overt. I'm sorry. It is
Like
macro
dang
to
on
me.
dictionary.
Yeah, you see, it's making it see an implicit bias as well. Oh, well, I didn't know. I'm past this space, as a DEI practitioner, anti-racist individual, trained individual, someone who wants to see Black liberation or just liberation in general of people. For me, it's like, stop. I personally do not believe at any point that white folks don't understand what they're doing. You can't not understand what you're doing. You just don't want to be held accountable for what you're doing. And I say that very, very explicitly on this platform. And I mean it with love, because I have white allies that I have worked with, and they have been able to admit, yeah, it's not that I don't know, it's that I didn't want to be held accountable for it, because then it was going to give me the reckoning that I was running away from. Understanding that I have been also brainwashed in this systemic structures that told me that I was better than somebody else. So, I mean, maybe those are just a couple white folks I know that are super dope. But for me, that is macro. It is super macro. And I went to work for 3 weeks straight. My manager, she was white. She macroaggressed me for 3 weeks, every single day, from lusting after Black men to saying things about my hair, to saying things about the way that work gets done, to asking questions that are just out of this world. Every single day for 3 weeks straight, until I think somebody pulled her coattail and she ended up stopping. Or maybe I might have said something because I'm super direct.
Yeah.
So how do we keep it cute in these environments, Daquetta, as we move into that? How do we keep it cute in these environments, to ensure that we're creating healthy boundaries for ourselves?
I had mentioned this before, that for me to be healthy, I can't be in a toxic environment. No matter how strong I am, no matter how direct I am, experienced I am, that is a daily challenge. And it is traumatizing to work in toxic environments. Anytime I have had the sad experience of working in a toxic environment where, let's say, there was change in leadership, I leave.
Yep.
I'm not welcome here. I tried in one environment, I was doing meditation. I was really heavy on my affirmations. I did Reiki, which we called it like my sacred time, getting in contact with my ancestors.
Right.
I did therapy. And I feel that all that work and my being, the it was you need to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't work out for everyone, but I therapy, my sacred time, meditation. I had an
Mm-hmm.
executive coach, like coming up with all type of tactics and tips and strategies.
Right.
I can't keep it cute there because then I begin to have those moments of, I don't know if you remember the show Ally McBeal. I'm
Yes,
not
I think it was.
so I would prefer that I take my authentic self, my passionate self, my skilled self, um, somewhere else.
Mm.
Because
Listen.
unless, I mean, this is, I have learned how to navigate the chain of command
Mhm.
where if there was an issue with the executive director, I know how to connect with the board. It is your right as an employee to be able to connect with the board, because if the executive director is causing harm or CEO and you try to resolve it and it continues, you can go to them.
Right.
We don't all have that energy to want to do that. And sometimes it works in our favor. Other times it's even the retaliation is heavy.
That's a different topic for a different day.
So for me, I can keep it cute for a little bit.
Like this
You know
one.
what I mean? Meaning if I need to file my grievances, if I need to report it to the board, if I need to go to the Department of Human Rights. But again, I think that you also have to like assess your that emotional energy. Do you
Mhm.
have it?
Right.
Or do you just want to invest in, let me find my exit out of here?
Listen. And I think it's super important to like establishing your boundaries ahead of time. Like as soon as you walk into the door or from the interview process, you're establishing your boundaries from there. You need to know your worth as an individual. And as you're going into the workforce, whether you are a new to a seasoned professional, your job is to create your work life balance and your boundaries in the workplace, and whether or not you want to bring your authentic self from the beginning. You don't wait until you get into a position to find out. So I always tell professionals, tell them exactly who you are in the interview process and save yourself some time, because if they are willing to hire you and you were your authentic self in that interview, then 9 times out of 10, you might be able to navigate that space long term. Now, there are bait and switch situations, but that's another topic for another day. However,
You got a
however,
lot of topics for another
yeah, I know
day.
because it's
I
so
love it.
nuanced.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
so nuanced, and we're both speaking from lived experiences, right? So it's like this was happening, but so was all these other things in tandem. They were running concurrent to each other. So for us, we're just like running through it. But I tell you, for all of you out there watching, if you're just tuning in for the first time, this is what we're here for. We're here to give you guys some ideas around how you can navigate and really create spaces where you reduce the harm and you make the boundary for yourself. Because what we're seeing is that the national landscape, these companies are not going to do it for you. So you're going to have to do it by any means necessary on some Malcolm X. And what we're seeing too is a TikTok trend called silent quitting, right? Quiet quitting, excuse
Right.
me, where people are making their boundaries silently. If you don't pay me, I'm not doing it.
Mhm.
So you can do the same thing in terms of authenticity. And we want to make sure that you're making healthy boundaries for yourself while also being able to take care of yourself, climb the corporate ladder, and do what it is that your heart desires, and you're feeding your soul at the same time. We're looking to move you into thrival mode and not survival mode.
That's right. And this is not normal.
Right.
Working in a toxic environment is
Exactly.
not normal.
Exactly.
You
Or
know,
shouldn't
so
be
you
normal.
deserve more. You know, you deserve more. It is your right to be able to work in an environment that is inclusive, that appreciates your differences, your authenticity. Like, you don't deserve to be in an environment like that. You deserve so, 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 so much more. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about this, I worked at a local healthcare center. And my dear friend, Dr. V, who I love so much, our
Oh, shout
paths,
out to Dr. V.
Dr.
What's
V,
up,
our
boo?
paths had been crossing, and then eventually we was able to start working together. And the director who hired me was a Black woman, and she left to go on to higher heights, and they brung in this woman who was a Tasmanian devil. And I'm sorry to put it like that, but I'm being authentic. I'm being true.
On this professional platform.
And
And
I will never forget the beauty in having others that look like us and embrace our relationship in the workplace. And we like create strategies to support each other. Even if it's lunchtime, we going to lunch together. And we
right.
just don't need to talk about this. Or we're going to go to dinner afterwards. But I will never forget the insult that this woman said. Um, I was working on a project, and Dr. V was going to come with me. And, you got to ask for permission, right? So this woman says to us, it doesn't take um um what did she say, 4 degrees to figure this out. I was like, it was that moment of, and I remember my friend's response, and she just closed her door. I just went back in my office and I put my gospel music on, and then I just said to myself, I can't work in these conditions.
Seriously. Seriously.
So yeah.
Listen, thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable with us to tell us about that story, right? Because creating boundaries for yourself, and some people might have spoke up in that moment, other people might have ran it up the line. Like, there are different ways for us to handle it. But I thank you for sharing that you felt slighted and you went and you did what you needed to do to
Take
calm
care of me.
yourself and take care of you,
Yeah.
right?
That was my cue. That
Listen.
was me keeping it cute to not
And
go to that other
this
level.
stage left. Exactly. You see? So that brings us, we are really coming up on time.
We
I
are.
wish we could talk to you forever, but we are in our last segment, guys. Shine bright like a diamond. We're
Mhm.
going to let Daquetta Jones tell us what are some ways in which we as a collective, and I know you spoke about these things, but I want for us to be very explicit.
Yeah.
What are some ways in which we as a collective can allow for our talents to shine despite the toxicity we may face?
Hmm. So for me, with that question, and what's important to me is to create our spaces that we feel safe. We feel included. We know that we can show up as our complete selves. Um, we also support each other through maybe other challenges. It's really about creating a tribe, to help us get through because of this toxicity in the workplace. So some of it looks like I am a part of a DEI group, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. And we know that some of the practitioners in that space have been harmed, and they made a courageous decision to leave the space. So then others stepped up in helping them secure other opportunities, so that they do not have to, for one, live or remain in an environment that is toxic and that is harmful. And then finding a space for them where they will be respected, and their authenticity will be embraced, right? That's like one example of that. But it's also showing up.
Yes.
For us, especially, there's we have a lot of incredible BIPOC leaders in the community, and I am so blessed and honored and grateful to know them. And as much as I can, I want to show up. I want to sponsor events. I want to be on the honorary committee. I just want to be in the crowd when you receive your flowers. I want to give you your flowers. Last February 2021, this just came in my heart, where I felt for Black history. I want to really shed light on our Black leaders in the community that are doing incredible things. And I don't want to assume because I know them, everybody else know them, right? I wanted to give them their flowers while they are living. I wanted them to know that I see you, I hear you, I value you, I love you, right? Keep going, keep doing your thing. The other thing is I wanted to bring awareness to what they're doing to drive traffic to their businesses, to their websites, purchase their books, and every single day, this was work, and this was free. This was free work.
Okay.
Every single day in February, I honored one of my Black brothers, sisters, others in the community. I gave them their flowers because it was important. And I wish that I can do it. Could have continued to do that. This work.
Like 365.
But you know what? We do celebrate us 365 days. That was something that I just felt on my heart that I needed to do. And I did it. And I'm always just showing up for us 365 days, celebrating us 365 days. I wish I can be everywhere. I don't want to clone.
Right.
Only if I can be.
If I can just be there now.
But it's like I can't be there, but I'm there in spirit.
So you guys heard it. The way we show up for each other is super important.
It is.
Our talents shine based on us allowing or using our platforms and our resources to lift each other up to shine. So I really appreciate you saying that. And so since we're coming up on time, and I know we have to let you go, there were more questions, but what I'm going to do is we're going to end here and maybe have part 2 if you would be willing to grace us. Queen Daquetta Jones, if you're willing to come back, you let me know. But guys, shine bright like a diamond in your own right. Celebrate our gifts and don't ever allow others to diminish your light. All right. Thank you for being with us here today. That is it for authenticity in the workplace. Daquetta, thank you for gracing us with your presence. You are amazing, beautiful. Is there anything that you would like to close out with?
I just wanted to say that Black joy is an act of resistance.
Ooh, you heard that.
Yeah.
Black joy is the act of resistance, and don't let anybody diminish your light. I mean, I feel like, I mean, we could end the whole series here. No, but seriously, guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Black and Beautiful Chit Chat Connections, where we chit, we chat, we connect on this professional platform with an authentic twist. See you guys later. Peace.
Hmm.